Do you want to play like the New World number 2? What does Alireza Firouzja play against d4 with the black pieces? And why should you continue watching? First up, you'll see Firouzja create an early imbalance, which is so important when you want to beat your opponent. You will see Firouzja use the bishop pair to completely destroy his opponent by controlling too many squares. Do you want to see how the New World number 2, Alireza Firouzja, plays the Slav defense? Then let's begin. With the white pieces, we have Pentala Harikrishna from India, and with black, we have Alireza Firouzja. Against d4, Firouzja plays d5, and after c4, c6, we get the Slav defense. Today, white plays the exchange Slav, take. The c file is now open. Bishop f4, knight c6, attack the center, e3, bishop comes out to f5. Firouzja also does the same. Bishop b5, pinning the knight to the king, no problem. e6, already we have symmetry, but soon we are going to see an imbalance. If the knights come out to their normal squares, we might get a very boring position. Firouzja mixes it up with knight e7. This was a key idea I mentioned at the start of the video. Gotta put your pieces on different squares. Rook c1, get the c-file. a6, question the bishop. Where is it going? Will he take the knight? Will he retreat to a4? Will he even come back to d3 to offer an exchange? No. White goes bishop e2. Look at the blue arrow. If there was a knight on that square, then black cannot play his next move, f6, controlling the center, and already we have some sort of imbalance among the pawn structure, which is very important when you want to beat your opponent. g4, attack the bishop, it drops back, knight comes out to f3. Perhaps white is going to find it hard to castle to get a safe king, but with this move, if we look at the blue diagonal, it looks very impressive. Firouzja is controlling this diagonal, but he chooses to retreat it to f7. With this move, g5, h5, we're going to attack the white pieces. Bishop retreats, h5, we attack the structure. Perhaps white is regretting his early advance. g5, knight g6, h4. White can play in this fashion. Hold the structure, castle. Black can actually get his pieces out with a move like bishop d6. Then castle and go for this pawn break. And already black is taking over. This is the pawn break we are going to see in the game. So going back a few moves. After g5, knight g6, a capture happened. Black can recapture. But no, Firouzja plays this in-between move, this intermezzo, attacking the bishop first. Take. If the bishop comes to f4, this is absolutely terrible, because after take, all the pawns are on dark squares. You have a dark squared bishop. The queen can even come out to attack the structure. So this is absolutely terrible. After taking on g7, bishop comes into e5. Take. Perhaps white is regretting the fact that he doesn't have a g-pawn. Knight comes to d4. You cannot play this move because after this, you have this perfect bishop in the middle, which was another reason I mentioned at the start, just to keep watching, just to see how Firouzja plays this. There's a perfect bishop in the center, so the game could go something like this. If white castled, we throw in a check, queen g5, let's threaten checkmate. The queen and the rook are so dangerous, you might offer a trade, and if this trade happens, take, rook c8, black is dominating. This bishop is perfect. This bishop can come out to g6 to control this wonderful diagonal. You have pressure on the c-file, and then you can even launch your pawn, b5, b4, to create a lot of play. Black has a wonderful position. So going back to the game, here, take, knight in the center, rook c8, black also gets the c-file, castle, knight deliberately retreats back. It's a very difficult move to make knight c6 because your knight looks perfect in the center, but knight c6 putting a question to the central knight and also getting in e5. White stops it with bishop g4. Now Firouzja transforms the structure. Take. This pawn is now a central target due to it being on a dark square. Rook c6, defend from the side. Knight e2, offering a trade. h3, controlling g2. Is this square available for the queen? No. Rook c3, going along the third rank, it is available for the rook, putting pressure along the fourth rank. Rook g3 is needed. You can't play bishop takes because this rook is defending the bishop. You just take it, and then this bishop is going to drop on the next move. So no, you cannot do this. That's why white had to swing the rook over to defend from the front. Rook g3 played. Queen c7. This is the pawn break he is going for. Rook e1. When I saw this position, I was thinking, why didn't white play f4? Because if this is a pawn break, then you need to stop it. One option is to play a move like bishop f6 or rook c2. Bishop f6 is actually very important. The reason rook c2 is no good is because f5 now, and then f6. That's why when I was checking with the engine, I was wondering why play bishop f6. And that's why. You actually need to play this first. And if bishop takes h3, rook c2, now black is in business. This rook is so well placed on the second rank. If rook e3, attacking this, I just want to continue a little bit here because there's an absolutely brilliant tactic which I've never ever seen before. Sidestep the king. Then this is under attack. There's a lot of pressure here. This is also another option, by the way. The bishop can actually sneak out. But if he captures, this is one of the best tactics I've ever seen. If white captures, take, check. After king h1, pause the 5-second timer now, or just let it run. Can you find an absolutely brilliant move for black? One of the best moves I've ever seen. We are wanting to attack h2 another way. And the absolutely brilliant move is queen g3. You can't take with the h-pawn. If you take with a knight, then we have this nice checkmating pattern, a double rook mate. What a line. What a line. So going back to the game, I just had to show that to you guys because I've never seen a beautiful tactic. I've never seen a tactic like that. This is what I was just trying to work out because this is the pawn break you want to stop black from achieving. Rook e1 was played, so Firouzja now gets out the way with king f8. e5 is coming soon. Queen d3, e5 is now played. Queen a3 check. Firouzja now offers a trade with queen d6. Take. Bishop takes pawn, and now taking on d4. If this happened, well then this bishop is in the game. Take, well you can't. That bishop drops, so that's why. He didn't take that way. So after this, take. 4 pawns each, bishop pair coming up. How is Firouzja going to use the bishop pair? Well, let's see. First up, he swings the rook to the left with rook h6. The bishop moves out the way, and it looks like that pawn is going to fall. My first question was, when I saw this, why not king g2? It turns out white's pieces are all congested. They're all just totally blocked up on the left. There's no coordination here. So first up, let's get the bishop in the game to e4, I mean. Now, if white plays f3, which was a blunder, because I was wondering, how is black going to break through? f3 is a terrible move. We need to activate the bishops. And the best way to do that is to push the pawn d3. We've got a couple of threats. d2 now wins either the rook or the knight. And this bishop is now activated as well. If you go rook d1 to stop it, the problem is you are not guarding the e5 square anymore. So after rook d1, bishop e5, that rook is going to drop, this bishop is going to drop. So only in a few moves, by using the bishop pair, white's position collapses. So let's go back to the game. Going back a few moves here, Firouzja played rook h6. The bishop has to move now. You can't play king g2 as we just saw. Then the h2 pawn drops. Knight d3. We now have 4 versus 3. This knight looks very well placed. It's a good blockader. Rook h5. Notice white is fighting for the e5 square. So how does he fight it again? Well, he actually plays f4 now. He's got 3 on that square. Rook c6. This is another very impressive thing. He's just swinging the rooks very well over to the king and the queen side. Rook c6 played, coming into c2. Bishop f3, you attack the rook, it drops back. You need to stop rook c2, so rook g2 is played. If rook h3 played, then rook f1. So no. Firouzja actually offers a rook trade, but after f5 he changes his mind. Rook h6 now. I think a slight difference is because dark squares here are now open, so maybe if this bishop can come out, then it's like this pawn should not have moved forward. That's the only reason I can think of why he did not trade rooks. Knight f4 played. This move looks great because it stops the rook coming in. It's hitting d5, and it can even come in. but it's actually a blunder. Pause the 5-second timer now, or just let it run. Can you find how black breaks through? The breakthrough is d3, vacating the square for the bishop. After d3, take bishop d4, check. This is what I mentioned at the start of the video to look out for. Firouzja is really using the bishop pair, controlling so many squares on the board, just taking over. Knight has to block. If you go king f1, when I saw this position, I was thinking, if you check, the king comes out, now what? I think that actually works, but rook h3 is a good one as well. Yeah, I think that works actually. What am I talking about? Check here, then check. Oh no, it doesn't work. No, sorry, no, let's go back. Ah, now I understand my flaw. Because if here, check, the king comes up, we need to go rook h3 first, attack the bishop. If it moves, the knight drops, and if you go here, well, then the king cannot escape, so rook h3 is mate. That's the difference. So if we go back here, we needed rook h3 just to put a question to the bishop. The bishop has no good square. Now if king e2, this is the difference. After check, the rook is still along the third rank, able to pick up one of the pieces. Take, and then the bishop drops. The knight drops, I mean. That's the difference. Let's go back to the game. Bishop d4 check, the knight has to block. Rook c2, you are stopping white moving. King f1, take the pawn. Rook e2, offer a trade, but check first, and Firouzja is saying, I'm going to trade on my terms. If we swap off rooks, then you get my rook in the game. Knight d3, bishop c3, very accurate move. Not only in the Slav, I just mean in general. You want your opponent to trade on your terms. Bishop attacks the rook, forcing white to trade. Take. King f2, king e7, activate the king. At the moment it is 3 against 2. Rook h2, king f6, and king e3. King g5 played to stop the king actually coming in. I think king e3 from white is such a sneaky move because it's so easy to fall for this trap. It looks like the pawn drops, but chess is just so tough at the highest level. Bishop takes d5, what a tactical shot, because after take, we check. The king has to defend the bishop, and now knight f4 check. And it is only 2 against 1. The winning chances have been severely reduced. So we can't go for this. What a tricky option. So king e3, king g5. Firouzja actually moves the king to stop the rook coming in to h6. Knight c5, attacking the pawn, hit the knight, but now white hits the bishop. Bishop back to g8. What a move. No check is available from the rook, so rook c7 is the only move to defend the knight from the back, but now he can take it, and there is no rook anymore to give this check. That's the difference. It is now 3 against 1. Knight takes pawn, 2 against 1, but this pawn, this central pawn is so strong. d4 check, rook b2 check, bishop e2, and king f4. I love this move because it really does highlight the control. The king is more active than white's king. This bishop is perfect because it's not only a defender, it's an attacker as well. Really, this bishop's role is so important because it just stops any check from white. Knight d6, bishop d2, coming in on a dark square. King f1, check, controlling so many squares, and it is game over because the bishop, rook, king, other bishop can come in the game. If the king moves out the way, the king can only go to these squares, but now you bring it in. Bishop d5 check, game over. Rook h1 is mate, and if you went the other way, king f2, then you get mated on a dark square, bishop e3, all squares covered. So it really is about Firouzja using the bishop pair in this game. Let's go back a few moves. Rook b1 check was played, bishop d1 was chosen because the king cannot move over to the left. Bishop d1, and you can take the bishop, but d3 was played, and in this position white resigned. You cannot defend the bishop, you are going to drop it on the next move. The cool thing here is after bishop d1 you can play check. It looks like it doesn't work because king e2 attacks both, but there's a brilliant move here, bishop back to a5. You attack my rook, so what, I attack your rook, and we are going to be up a bishop. If you attack the bishop, then throw in a check, and then you can even play this, which is what I saw, because you're defending the rook from the back. But this is a really cool move, which I didn't expect, where everything protects everything. I think bishop c3 is a much better move, because everything guards everything. You show total control in your position. However, in the game after this, d3, it's game over. That bishop is going to drop. There's no good move for white. Because I only covered one game in this video, I'm going to quickly review the key points that you can apply in your games. d4, d5, so here we go. Exchange Slav, let's get to the first key moment. Knight e7, causing the imbalance in order to create winning chances. f6, imbalance in the pawn structure, attacking your opponent's structure, throwing in this in-between move, take, take, and now getting the bishop pair. Getting the c-file, backward knight move so difficult, take, take, new target for you. Rook c6, and here we go, controlling squares. That square is now available for a major piece. Rook h4, attack from the side. Queen here. Queen's now come off, take, take, and here we go, next key moment. The rook swings in this game are just amazing, along with the bishop moves. Here we take, control the square, swing, tuck it back, offer a trade, things change, your opponent blunders, d3. Now the bishop pair really comes in. This is a vacating move. The best move here, you could take your own pawn, but you can't, so you vacate the square. Now you're in. Rook c2, take the pawn, showing full control, and here's a good moment. Beautiful swing rooks, not just the bishop moves, but the rook swings are just gorgeous in this game. You force your opponent to trade on your terms, you get your rook in the game. Activate the king. Don't fall for this brilliant tactic, king g5, wow. Attack the knight, drop it back, bishop pair, just rule the board. Push your central pass pawn, attack with check. Activate your king, every square covered. I love this piece on g8. Just stopping this f7 check, it shows perfect control. Bishop d2, getting in on a dark square, and then the game was over. How does Firouzja win with the best chess opening? What is the octopus knight? Does Firouzja ever get lucky at chess? A queen sacrifice is seen in this game, but does it work?